Some kids collect baseball cards. Some collect action figures. Me, I collect fractions. George Cornelius Factor, or GCF for short, is crazy about fractions. When a brand new 5/9 goes up for auction, he's the first in line to buy it. The bidding heats up and then the lights go out. When they're back on, the 5/9 is gone. Has the mysterious Dr. Brock stolen the fraction and disguised it? Can our intrepid hero strip away the disguise with his trusty reducer? Equal parts action and humor add up to a wholly entertaining introduction to simplifying fractions. Fractions in Disguise. A Math Adventure by Edward Einhorn, illustrated by David Clark. Some kids collect baseball cards. Some collect action figures. Me, I collect fractions. I've been collecting them for exactly 2/3 of my life. In my bedroom, shelves full of fractions cover 3/4 of the walls. Maybe it's because I was born during a half moon, or maybe it's because I'm 1/4 genius, 1/4 stubborn, 1/2 determined, and 1/6 crazy. But for me, it all adds up to one thing. I can't get enough of those darn fractions. So when a brand new 5/9 went up for auction, you know I was first in line to buy it. The 5/9 is a thing of beauty. When you first look at it, it looks like 1/2. But the more you look, the more you realize it's just a little bit more. The room was filled with regular customers. Baron von Mathematic, Madame de Geometrique, and the mysterious Dr. Brock, a former university professor rumored to have been fired for the illegal possession of a 4/10. I bid 1/2 $1 million. Madame de Geometrique bid 3/4 of a million. Baron von Mathematique bid 7/8 of a trillion. Our bids were clearly approaching $1 million. Would we ever reach it? Suddenly we found ourselves in darkness. "There's foul play afoot," cried the Baron. His fears proved true. When the lights went back on, the 5/9 was nowhere to be seen. Neither was Dr. Brock. "Alas, he's stolen it!" exclaimed Baron von Mathematique. "He never gets his fractions fair and square," agreed Madame de Geometrique. "But how can he hope to hide it?" I asked. "He is a master of disguise, Mr. Factor," Madame de Geometrique explained. "How he can take a 1/2 and turn it into a 2/4 or a 3/6. It's still the same fraction, but it looks different." "So am I to understand that he takes a 3/5? I began. "Multiply the 3 by 4 and the 5 by 4, continued Madame Geometrique, "and have something that looks like 12/20, I concluded. "But it's still really 3/5, Madame de Geometrique agreed. "He just doesn't want you to know." "My poor, beautiful fraction," wailed Baron von Mathematique. "Don't despair," I said. "I have an idea." That night I worked till dawn. By morning, I had what I needed, a reducer. What is a reducer? It's half ray gun and half calculator made from a whole lot of paper clips, a whisk, some discarded computer parts, and sheer ingenuity. What does it do? It removes the disguise from a fraction and reduces it to its lowest terms. I tested it out that morning. For a long time, I had owned a 10/15, but I suspected that it could be another fraction in disguise. I pointed the reducer at it and dialed a 2. The top number, or numerator, as we call it in the trade, wavered, trying to turn into a 5, but the bottom number, or denominator, stayed the same. I dialed a 3. The denominator transformed to a 5, but the numerator wouldn't budge. I dialed a 4 and nothing happened. Finally, I dialed 5. The fraction changed completely. The 10 became a 2 and the 15 became a 3, leaving me with a sleek 2/3. The reducer was ready to go. Dr. Brock lived in a mansion that had to be 1/10 of a mile tall. When I rang the bell, he opened the door halfway. "Let me in, Doctor," I told him. "I know you had the 5/9 in there, and I'm going to find it." Come in, he purred. "Take a look around. You'll see no 5/9 in here." Look at all those fractions he's got. I went in. There were fractions everywhere, piled on shelves, bursting from cupboards, covering the floor. There was even an enormous 100/100th hanging from the ceiling. Quickly, I spotted my first fraud. "The 3/21st, I said. "It's really a 1/7, isn't it?" I pointed my reducer at the fraction and dialed a 3. Both the numerator and denominator were divided, and now I had a 1/7 before me, as I suspected. That's a very interesting device you have there," commented Dr. Brock, eyeing the reducer nervously. "Ingenious, really." I spotted another suspicious fraction. Could that be a 5/9 in disguise? It was 34/63, and it looked familiar. I dialed a 2, a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing seemed to work. "You can't reduce that one," said Dr. Brock. "That fraction's already reduced to its lowest terms, I'm afraid." He was smiling in secret satisfaction as he said it, but he was right. That fraction was as reduced as it could be. I found a few more fractions that could be reduced. An 8/10 became a 4/5. A 2/16 became a 1/8. And an 11/22 became a 1/2. But no 5/9. I even looked through the garbage, full of old fractions and fraction pieces so small they were worthless. I found a piece from a 1/28, a 1/63, and a 1/92. The 5/9 was nowhere to be seen. There was something I was missing. "Well, it was nice of you to visit," Dr. Brock began saying. "I would invite you to stay longer, but I'm just about to polish all my That's 1/63. "Where did it come from?" I interrupted. "It's just an old broken fraction," sputtered Dr. Brock. Quickly, I raced back to the 34/63. The tiny 1/63 fit perfectly into it, making the fraction a 35/63. That was a fraction that could be reduced. Wait! No! Cried Dr. Brock. But it was too late. I had already pointed the reducer and dialed a 7. The 35 divided and became a 5, while the 63 divided and became a 9th. There it was, right in front of me, the 5/9 I have been looking for. Very clever, Dr. Brock said with a sneer. I didn't think you had it in you. He raced up the stairs and unhooked a rope. Suddenly the 100th above me began falling, all 100 pieces of it looking like daggers. I dialed the reducer up to 100, aimed high, and jumped for cover. A solid disc landed with a clatter and rolled away. The 100th had become a single whole, no longer a fraction at all. But Dr. Brock was gone. Baron von Mathematik and Madame de Geometrique couldn't believe it when I told them the story. You did it, Mr. Factor, the Baron cried, saluting me. The fraction is yours, said Madame de Geometrique. You earned it. I put it in the most prominent place on my shelf, right next to the reducer. Now, every morning when dawn comes, the first ray of light through my window lands on the 5/9. It doesn't look half bad. Reducing fractions. Simple. That's the biggest little word in the fraction games. The simpler the fraction, the easier it is to add or subtract. In math speak, the reducer works by finding the greatest common factor, the largest number that both the numerator and the denominator can be divided by. This makes it easier to find the lowest common denominator, the smallest number that the denominator can be, while keeping in mind that the denominator needs to be the same in all the fractions when you add or subtract them. As any fraction collector will tell you, reducing a fraction can be very handy, and who knows, it may be a very valuable fraction in disguise. Now, what operation did Mr. Factor use to reduce each fraction? Answer that question for me. Email it to me. Have a great day.